Rugby League fans, I really need your help with something. For round 7 of Super League, I'll be doing a charity fundraiser called KRL1 to help raise money for the MND Association in honour of Rob Burrow. So I need you to repost or share this video depending on which platform you're seeing this on. So far, RL Commercial, Keighley Cougars, Hunslet, Dewsbury Rams, St Helens and Oldham are all offering merchandise or experiences for people to win and to help raise money. So here's what's on offer and how you can win. RL Commercial are offering 2 tickets to either the Challenge Cup Final or Grand Final for 2025. Keighley Cougars have offered a signed 2025 shirt and a signed ball. Hunslet have offered a 2024 signed shirt. Dewsbury Rams have offered a 2025 signed shirt. St Helens have offered a signed ball. And Oldham have offered a 2024 match-worn shirt from Kian Morgan and 2 VIP hospitality tickets to a game of the winner's choice, not including the game versus Toulouse. If you'd like to help a great cause and be in with a chance of winning any of these prizes, here's how you can get involved. Go to kineticrl.com/KRL1 and scroll down to the KRL1 prize draws. Every £5 you donate will equal 1 entry into a prize draw for the specific prize you donate to. For the finals tickets, you have 2 options. Option 1 is donating directly through the prize draws section. Option 2 is donating through Just Giving. But you must leave an email address for your donation receipt, and you must check this box saying, "I'm happy to share my contact details with Kinetic RL for the purpose of thanking me." If you don't check this box, I can't track entries. If you forget to check it, contact me on any of these platforms and send proof of donation and I'll add you to the draw. Come and stop by the live streams on YouTube and Twitch during any of these 3 Super League Round 7 matches. And for the final game, Huddersfield versus Catalans, I'll be doing all draws to see who wins the prizes. The cut-off point for all entries will be 12 PM on Sunday the 13th of April. Donations made after this point will not be included in the prize draws. Please share this video to as many people as possible on whatever platform you're on. Tag your club below this post and make sure they see this, and hopefully they'll get involved in the fundraiser as well. But let's raise some money for the MND Association in honour of Rob Burrow. Thank you. So I've left my round 6 recap up on the screen for you guys to check out, as well as how well I've done over the course of the season. Still waiting on that 6 out of 6. It's just evading me. It's eluding me right now. So hopefully we can get it this week, but let's get on with the first game of round 7. Kicking things off, we have the Salford Red Devils taking on Leeds Rhinos. So with Salford, again, this is just the same narrative with them, is that we don't know what's going to happen day to day. I think they seem a little bit more settled, like we kind of know what kind of team we're going to get. It's just their best team available, but with a couple of kids in there as well. I think that's what we're going to get on a slightly more consistent basis. Not only would that be good for the sport, for the Salford fans, but for Salford as a playing group as well, knowing what kind of team they can put out on a regular basis, even if it is slightly weaker than what they'd like. So there's no Nenny McDonald in there as well. He's gone to Oldham for 3 weeks, so he may come back in later, but we'll see. But with the kind of spine that they can put out there, with Briley in there, Atkin and Nikarima, there's a solid base. There's a solid group of players that can lead, that can direct and create opportunities. There's a strong enough forward pack in there to at least compete or put in a good shift and not be absolutely steamrolled through the middle. And I think one thing that will help for development for the younger lads over the course of the season is that they'll have to play at this point, but not all together. They can be put into somebody in the centres, or somebody comes on as the relief hooker, a prop forward that's on the bench. You know, just little pieces here and there that can develop alongside the usual regulars, or regulars that you'd hope for Salford, and they can build confidence being next to guys that have been there and done that before. With the Leeds Rhinos, really strong forward pack. I think they will likely win through the middle, and even if Salford do manage to stay competitive in, say, like the first 20 minutes, maybe first half, over the course of 80 minutes, the quality that Leeds can bring on in the middles, I think will just wear them down, and that will be one of the major components. So I kind of trust the backs. I think defensively we'll see a lot of great scramble defence from Salford, but especially through the middle, that's where Salford will just be worn down, because Leeds are very strong in that area. Spreading the ball towards the edges, Jake Connor still looks somewhat comfortable. Brodie Croft is actually looking a little bit more comfortable as well, especially compared to last year. And Lockie Miller, still elusive, making players miss tackles, creating those second phases, and that's going to be huge. I think offloads will be a major component in favour of the Leeds Rhinos. If Salford can wrap the ball up as much as possible, it will certainly limit the damage. I think this game's going to be a situation where we will see those sparks from Salford. I think they will put up points because of the passion, the energy, desire that they'll play with this week, and being a little bit more settled with the squad that they can put out, they will continue to create opportunities. But I think the gap to settled teams, and I think Leeds are one of the more competent settled teams, will just be able to keep that lead. I think Salford will, they'll find line breaks because Leeds aren't a perfect team. Salford will find line breaks. Nicarima will be the orchestrator of that. I'm pretty sure, especially down that right edge as well. But I think Leeds should be fairly comfortable in this game, but Salford will certainly try and make it questionable at times. But I'm going to go with Salford Red Devils 16, Leeds Rhinos 28. Next up, we have the Hull Kingston Rovers taking on the Wigan Warriors in what is probably going to be the game of the season so far. Now, I'm imagining Grand Final Rugby League. And what we normally get from that is teams not really showing their hand too much. It's just getting into the grind, a few hit-ups, kicking on the last, and just putting out the best kick chase you can. In the forwards, if you look at the players on paper, they're extremely well matched. I'm thinking, which way do I lean it towards? I think it's going to be very 50-50, but I think if Wigan want to get the upper hand, they need to bring on Patrick Mago earlier. Thompson can set a platform, so can Dupree, so can Burns, so can Walters as well. I don't know the full cast that's available for both forward packs. But I think if Wigan want to get the upper hand, because it's going to take Patrick Mago to be the difference. Sue can obviously lay a platform, so can Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. You've got Hadley and Luckley through the middles and sort of edges as well. But I think Mago is possibly the difference maker. But if they take too long to bring him on, it's going to be just straight up back and forth. Now, the difference between the two teams is that Hull Kingston Rovers are less flustered in possession. Wigan have become slightly more predictable. One thing that they did a lot last year, but teams couldn't really stop, was just the simple, fast-paced but flat style going from Smith to Nsemba to Wardle to Marshall. Teams are kind of boxing that off and being able to deal with it a little bit down the right edge, with French playing a little bit more off the cuff. He's not really getting as many opportunities to create. I couldn't really tell you exactly what teams are doing to shut that down, but just overall for Wigan, it just hasn't been clicking quite as well as it was last year. And for Hull KR, the way that they stay so well drilled and settled defensively, I don't know if Wigan have it in them to win this one. Because in possession, Hull Kingston Rovers are spreading the ball extremely well. And one thing that I just do not understand with them is, as much as we praise Mikey Lewis in terms of how brilliant he is as a player, Hull KR are never affected when he's gone. It is one of the biggest mysteries to me in Rugby League, is you have the man of steel, one of the best players in the league, one of the most dangerous players in the league, and then when he's not there, Hull KR are no different. Jez Litton just fits in perfectly. So I'm not too sure. As of right now, when I'm recording this, I'm not entirely sure what's happening with Mikey Lewis. But even if Jez Litton's the number 7 or 6, I've got no worries whatsoever. I think they'll be completely fine. And side note on Jez Litton, I think a lot of clubs will start looking at him as a possible option for a number 7 going forwards. Not that Hull KR will let him go or want to let him go, but it's just a side note that he's actually someone to look at. If people need a real rebuild or someone need a quality number 7 or a 9 that can rotate into the 7 role, people will start looking at Jez Litton, especially if he's not starting at Hull KR. Teams might think, oh, maybe he wants a starting role. Just a side note anyway. But Hull Kingston Rovers look more competent defensively, more competent in possession. I think they will enjoy the back and forth grind a little bit more, which it will be in that grand final style that I mentioned. But to get onto a prediction, I'm going to go with Hull Kingston Rovers 14, Wigan Warriors 12. Next up, we have St Helens taking on Wakefield Trinity. St Helens are in a weird place at the moment, because I remember from their initial performances in the first few rounds, obviously there's not much you can take from the Salford game in round 1, but they looked really free-flowing. They looked really organised. They looked really quick and just played with a lot of pace and a lot of confidence in what they were doing. Now, I know they've had to make a couple changes. Percival is not there. Felt isn't there. They would have liked Murphy. I think it's Murphy over on the left-hand side. Isn't there. So there's a few pieces. James Bell, they've not had him possibly since round 1. They only got him a week or two ago. Not entirely sure on his return. But there are pieces in that Saints team that they've had to kind of cover for. But maybe it's a case of them being found out in what they've been trying to do in possession. Defensively, they're still fine, but prone to line breaks, like conceding line breaks, but still relatively fine. In possession, I think it's inside their own territory or the middle third where they look most dangerous when they use Tristan Saylor down the right edge. Inside the red zone, they just can't deal with that lack of space. They can't deal with the defensive line speed that teams put out there. And there's just a little bit of a disconnect. A lot of the blame is being put on Johnny Lomax at the moment. Whether that's fair or not, I'm not smart enough to analyse every single aspect of the attack and decide whether he's at fault. I would imagine it's entirety of the team that needs a bit of work and things being remastered a little bit. But in possession, Saints are still dangerous, as I say, especially inside their own territory or inside the middle third, when they've got room to run, when teams are either bunched up slightly more centrally and then they can start spreading the ball to the edges, use the pace of Wellesby and Saylor to start creating overlaps and get on the edges of the 3-man, the 4-man or the 3-man, or even draw in the centres and get the ball out to the centre or winger. So we'll have to see what St Helens does there. And obviously when they played Wakefield a few weeks ago, or in round 2, I think that was, they were quite comfortable in most areas, somewhat dominant in the forwards, and spreading the ball looked quite comfortable. But getting on to Wakefield, in the first few rounds they looked like they were competing well enough, but since then they've looked more mature in all different areas. They look more comfortable through the middle. They look more comfortable spreading the ball. The biggest issue for them right now, I think, is the kicking game. Leigh has a few stinkers in there, so there's plenty of height, but there's just not much distance or depth on it. So Leigh kicking needs to be improved, especially when they go down the short side right. He'll just kick straight up, which is fine if you're going to, have a decent kick chase off the back of it, but it's just not pitting anyone into the corners, so he needs to improve on that a little bit. Russell, typically over on the left-hand side, is doing okay with those. In terms of who's at fullback, whether it's Jowett or Rourke, I'm actually unaware of how long Jowett's supposed to be out for, so I do apologise with that one. Please let me know. But if it's Rourke or Jowett, both even Rourke looks quite comfortable, especially spreading towards the left edge, trying to get those overlaps, cutting inside, creating second phases, and especially down the left edge against Leigh at the weekend. They created some line breaks with Pratt over on the left-hand side. And as I say, with St Helens being vulnerable to some line breaks, that could be an area that they can do a bit of damage. I just think, for me, the forward pack is just about stronger from Saints. But Wakefield are a much more mature team than they were when they first played Saints, so I think that sort of equalises the scoreline a little bit, and Saints have taken a bit of a step back. I still think in most areas Saints are the stronger team on paper in most areas. So I will lean towards St Helens. If Wakefield get it done, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they won this one. But I think just about Saints in most areas will have enough in their arsenal to get a win. So I'm going to go with St Helens 24, Wakefield Trinity 18. Next up, we have the Warrington Wolves taking on Hull FC. I've now said for a few weeks in a row, I needed to see more from them. I needed to see the game against Saints replicated, and it kind of was a bit against Leeds, and then it was actually replicated again against Saints. So with Warrington, the biggest difference is size. That is the biggest difference. We are starting Musgrove and Vaughan and Harrison. Now, we did lose Vaughan early on against Saints at the weekend. Yates came on after a couple of minutes to replace him. Vaughan came back on later into the game. But we're starting with as many big guys as possible. Sam Burgess has mentioned that he'd like to get Ben Curry into the loose forward position. I'm 50-50 on it, because unless we put one of our bigger guys on the bench, we then get a little bit smaller to start games and we're less competitive through the middle. But I want a quality ball-playing 13. So maybe there's a way of trying to work him in there somewhere. I don't know. I'll leave that up to Mr. Burgess and Mr. Gleeson to figure that one out. But with the back line of Warrington, there's been a lot of changes. It was different from Saints to Leeds and then to Saints again in a few different areas. Lindup is getting a lot more game time now, but is being put under quite a bit of pressure. I think he is prone to being drawn in, especially if teams get that overlap. I think his decision-making is still questionable at the moment, but he's able to deal with the high ball quite well. And when he's put under pressure, he does respond quite well. Defensively, Warrington have started to look like a better team, missing less tackles, allowing less offloads. It's still not as good as I'd like it to be, but it's definitely a hell of a lot better than it was against Catalans, Wigan, and possibly Wakefield, somebody else around that time a few weeks ago. But through the middle, Warrington are a lot stronger. They're ready for the physicality now. So to do it back-to-back against Saints and also Leeds, both of those teams have really strong forward packs. Warrington now up for the physicality, which we were missing early in the season. And then spreading the ball is still needs a bit of work. It's more time with Mark Sneed getting involved in the attacking structures. And we looked okay at times. We've looked okay at times. But it still needs a bit of work. And George Williams even mentioned after the quarterfinal win against Saints that he and Dufty still have things to work on. It's not quite perfect. So the fact that they're still creating opportunities, they can still make things happen off the cuff, but there's room for them to work on, is quite exciting as a Wire fan going forward. But for Hull FC, they came up against an extremely strong KR team at the weekend in the Challenge Cup quarterfinals. I was hoping the game would be a bit more competitive, but the performance went about as I'd expected. They were okay through the middle. They were beaten through the middle, but they were okay. Herman SASA had some decent carries here and there. Ashworth tried to have some strong carries, but was pushed back a couple times. Same with Aiden, same with Knight, and same with SA as well. So there are strong pieces in the forward pack that can bring a good fight to Warrington. But I think even though Hull FC's forward pack is bigger, Warrington have now proven against two strong forward packs that they can compete with that physicality. Herman SASA, I think, will still kind of have his way with Warrington through the middle and just get those easy post-contact meters. We struggle against the really big guys, like the one bulldozer, like it's a Satai or a Lasoni, SASA, those kind of blokes. But I think in possession, it's going to be a decent battle in terms of the kicking game. Aiden Caesar has a fairly reliable, fairly effective kicking game. Hull FC also have a decent kick chase as well. They're pretty strong in that area and are able to pin teams back quite well. They didn't do a great job against Hull Kingston Rovers, but they are great at working the ball out their own end. I do think it's going to be fairly tight in this one. It's going to be a little bit of a back and forth game like it was for Warrington and Saints at the weekend. But I just think Warrington now have shown that they can withstand enough pressure through the middle and have enough quality pieces in there and are a little bit more settled than Hull FC right now. I think there's a bit more that Warrington can expose, and I think that'll just be the difference maker. The physicality is the main thing. Warrington have shown that they can now withstand a lot of great defensive pressure as well, and I think Hull FC only appear to be effective down the left-hand side, and Warrington can kind of they can look for that, whereas Warrington, they're effective on both edges, I feel. A little bit more so than Hull FC. So I'm going to go with Warrington Wolves 22, Hull FC 16. Next up, we have the Castleford Tigers taking on the Leigh Leopards. I think, starting with Leigh, that win against Wakefield was so important for their confidence because they've been on a massive dip at the moment. And beating Wakefield right now, based on how well they've played, and especially given the result that happened the week earlier in Super League, that's a huge turnaround. That's a massive turnaround for them and a huge confidence boost to show that we can get back on track. It's not like they've played against Salford that have a bunch of kids, or that it was Castleford being potentially the worst team in Super League. It's up to you guys who you want to put there. But they showed that they could take on a decent forward pack through the middle. They showed that they could be well-disciplined, well-drilled defensively. Not too many errors from what I recall. I think they were pretty decent on that side of things, if I remember. And in terms of moving the ball with pace inside the middle third, they looked pretty good and there was some decent intent. I do think the kicking game from O'Brien was quite effective at times, especially, obviously, the kicking game didn't necessarily directly contribute to the try that they scored towards the end of the game, but the kick from O'Brien that put Rourke on the back foot is a perfect example of what he's capable of, and those kind of kicks will be important against Castleford, because if you pin them into the corners, if you pin them inside their own 10, Castleford are not working the ball out from their own end. You just need semi-decent kicks into the corners. Castleford are not working the ball out from their own end. They don't have the forwards to do it. The only way I see it sort of happening for Castleford is if they spread the ball inside their own red zone. They've got to get the ball out to Sini, to Wood, to Senior. They've got to get some overlaps early in the tackle count and go at Leigh, otherwise they're not breaking out their own end. Field position, and that pitch is a lot smaller as well because the distance between the 30 and 40 is less than 10 metres. Leigh will dominate in this game. They'll happily take the field position, and the guys that they have in that team, even though the forward pack isn't that strong, you're still getting good carries from Trout. You're getting pretty strong carries from Liu. Mulhern is actually putting in some great carries and had some great carries against Wakefield. Niu is knocking people onto their backsides, and what a hell of a solo try he had against Wakefield. There are a good handful of players in there, even though the forward pack is relatively small to a lot of others in Super League. There are individuals that will knock you on your arse, and Castleford cannot afford to get into a back and forth. They will lose the kicking game because they don't have the players for it, because their kicking games aren't effective enough, and they don't have the middles to compete. So they need to be aggressive in their approach, which they've just not been doing. You see it once in a blue moon from them. They'll get the ball out to Senior and he'll, find a break down the left edge. But Leigh, in all areas, I think should be completely fine in this one, should be fairly comfortable. I think Castleford will find points here and there. They'll just get a spark from Hoy, once in the first half, once in the second half. Maybe there's points towards the back end of the game. But I'm going to go with Castleford targets 12, Leigh Leopards 30. Finally, we have the Huddersfield Giants taking on the Catalans Dragons. I think there is real potential for an upset here. I'm not sure whether to actually go with the upset, but I think there's genuine reason to consider an upset. But this is how I'm thinking about it at the moment. If you just look at the forward battle, I will always talk about Catalans Dragons on paper, because on paper, they've got one of the strongest, most exciting looking teams in Super League. But in terms of actual on-field execution, it's not happening. They're not battering teams through the middle like I thought they might. They're not getting that many quick play the balls or that many post-contact meters, I feel. In possession, they look very sluggish and very slow, very one-dimensional in attack. Huddersfield Giants, on the other hand, through the middle, are competing quite well against most. As much as Huddersfield aren't putting much together in the way of points, through the middle, they look pretty damn strong and can compete with a lot of forward packs. Now, whether they'll have a similar forward pack to what they had last week or over the last couple of weeks, I don't know. I'm not sure the entire player availability for the Giants. But the back row and the backs are where they've had the most changes. They've had to change the spine a couple of times, the back line a couple of times. You've had back rowers playing in the centres. But there's a few pieces in there. If Gagai's in there again, he offers him a lot of quality, attacking the edges, cutting back inside, creating line breaks. Lollahay and Flanagan, if they're in the halves again, they can continue to develop a partnership. Flanagan, Huddersfield really need him to develop as quickly as possible. He's already shown a lot of great quality signs in possession. They just got to keep developing him as a player. Then you need the most consistent backline that you can have with your top players in there. And maybe, given that in possession Catalans don't look that exciting, there's an opportunity that Huddersfield can go long periods in this game keeping the Dragons out. And through the middles they can compete quite well. And we've seen, aside from 2 weeks ago, or the week before possibly, they were leading at half-time in the first 4 or 5 games they had. Someone can correct me on that one if I'm wrong. But there's an element to this team, and I talk about this all the time in Huddersfield, sparks. Sparks in attack and sparks in defence. You get them here and there. But they're a team that can do well in the first 40. They could keep it very close to the Dragons or even be leading at half-time again and possibly go on and win it. My biggest concern is consistency in the backs. And it's just getting used to and getting into a rhythm with a settled team. And the biggest difference right now is that Catalans Dragons are a bit more settled with who they can use. I think their forward pack is big enough to win the battle through the middle, but I think the Giants will do a good job to compete. And I think the individual quality within the Dragons will just be enough. But I think this will be extremely close. It shouldn't be if you look on paper, but I think there's a good chance this is extremely close and could work out quite nicely for Huddersfield. But I just can't look past the slight defensive improvements that the Dragons have made and the overall individual quality. So, again, the Giants, I think, could be winning at half-time. But I'm going to back the late push from Catalans to get it done. So I'm going to go with Huddersfield Giants 16, Catalans Dragons 20. So that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have your own predictions, please let me know in the comments down below. And also check out the Rugby League fan question that I pinned to the comments. But going back to the KRL1 MND fundraiser, if you guys go to kineticrl.com/KRL1 and donate to any of the experiences, the prize draws that I've put up there that have been submitted by the clubs in RL Commercial, it'd be greatly appreciated. Let's raise some money for MND in honour of Rob Burrow. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Rugby League content, and check out the Kinetic Rugby League website in the description down below. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.